Hey everyone, welcome to GTM Secrets. Stephen Lowisz here. We talk about everything go-to-market, sales, marketing, demand gen, ads, RevOps, you name it. Today, and I've done one or two of these before, but today we're doing probably my least favorite topic because I suck at it. We're going to talk about content with Ben Belcher here, who is a genius at it, not at just using it for branding, but using it for demand gen, right? Now, before we dive into it, Ben, I want you to give a quick context on yourself. But for everyone listening, if you haven't already and you're manager or more senior than manager, go check out gtmsecrets.com. We have a free Slack community for leaders and above. Ben, do you mind giving a quick intro on yourself, man?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Stephen. And, I'm looking forward to this session. I have a feeling that if you just recorded our one-on-ones that we have all the time, it'd probably be a pretty good session. So my background started in 2007, and it was at Tech Target. And one of the things that I loved at Tech Target was you felt like you were one of the chefs and one of the cooks in the kitchen. You really got to see what it was like to have your own first-party audience. You really got to work with a lot of great companies. You were an industry leader. So for a young kid coming out of college, it actually felt like I was getting my own MBA there. And, 6 years later, I ended up going to Serious Decisions. And this was prior to Forrester acquiring them. And so learned a lot about what happens on the back end after you take leads and you start to kind of bridge the gap between sales, marketing, and product. After that, I really started to fall in love with the intent data space. And it was all about, hey, how do you figure out which organizations are in market, who's having high intent, how does that map back to the buying team, and how would that change the way that you're starting to, activate lead gen? And so worked with some brilliant people that really had great access to first party, second party, and third party intent data. And ever since then, just been part of some really great startups and some companies that have really succeeded in that ability to help large enterprise companies take their data, really identify the top 5-10% that are showing the highest level of activity, and then provide the content experience that those buying teams are expecting.
So you're the CEO of Fairway Digital Media. Why start another godforsaken agency when there's a billion of them? What made you have that idea?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Part of my path was being kind of at that value-added media reseller stage where, you're working with a supply chain of people that can generate high-quality leads for you, but you do need to have a differentiator. And so I was thinking about how hard it is to actually operationalize all these different value adds that the current landscape has. And I just felt that, execution itself, if you really know the hurdles and the challenges and the things that it takes to build a program, it's not always about having, this unbelievable data source or this silver bullet. It's often about that experience that you've had over decades of, how do you build a target account list, right? How do you make sure that you understand where they're at in the buyer's journey? How do you work with the right people to serve the right content at the right time? And then once it gets, back into your customer's database, the fight's just beginning, right? So how do you help them not only have marketing engage, but how do you help sales engage? And I felt that so much of that was something that Fairway could do, sort of like when you're golfing and you're in the middle of the fairway and all you want to do is get to the green so that you can get a birdie. I felt like I could help more sales and marketing teams put themselves in position to score.
The only thing I'm worse at than content is golf. As much as I love it, I go for a high score, but I get the euphemism or whatever the right word is here. So look, when I think content, I can write decent landing page copy, right? Direct response. In terms of content though, like in the traditional sense, I'm horrible. I've looked at it as, generate some blogs, get a little bit of traffic, retarget them, let them see your ad 85 times, and then try to convert them, right? I think you look at it from a demand gen perspective right out of the gate. So I'm curious, first of all, do you focus on top of funnel content to generate traffic? Do you focus on middle of funnel to start encouraging conversions? What formats do you like? Just give us kind of the ground floor, if you will.
Yeah. I tend to think a little bit more about it from a strategy lens than a copywriting lens. And from when you're thinking about a campaign framework or building a go-to-market plan, at some point you're trying to identify, hey, is my objective here to acquire new customers, or is it to prevent churn, or is it to cross-sell and upsell, or are we trying to do a competitive attack type program? And then you also want to think about the solutions that you serve to the market. Is it something that people are even aware that they have a problem? Or do you just sell a better mousetrap to a problem that, they currently have and they're working with somebody, but they might not be fully satisfied? Or are you selling something in an established market where they really care more about price and any new innovations and bells and whistles that came out? Take a look strategically. The type of content you're going to create is going to be built very specifically around meeting your customer in that information journey of where they're at. And so I really think about, if I were that customer or that buying unit and I had to figure out how to help my company grow, what piece of content would not only myself, but my team need? And then I would advise my advertising customers, hey, here's how we do that. And here's how we do that efficiently. And here's how we get that in the right hands of these people.
So put your consulting hat on for a second. We're building stuff that no one knows about at Identity, right? I'm just going to use me as kind of a case study, showcase your knowledge and be a little selfish here at the same time. If we're building really cool AI solutions and de-anonymization and whatnot that nobody else has, and very few people know that any of this stuff exists. The most familiar they are would be like with a Warmly or RB2B that do literally 1/5 of what we do. If you're going, and we don't have cross-selling or anything like that right now, right? We have a platform. Do you want it or do you not? If you're targeting, I'll even get specific. We go for mid-market and early enterprise, B2B marketing leaders that oftentimes focus on ABM. They are using tools like 6 Sense, Demand Base, whatever. How would you even start to wrap your head around, what kind of content should I put out? How should I distribute it?
Yeah, great question. And believe it or not, even though a lot of people might not necessarily know that you exist, they can inherently, across their sales and their marketing ecosystem, they can feel the problem that you're solving. And so what I would do is I would go through kind of a campaign framework concept that said, maybe they don't know that they need to unhide their website visitors, but what do they know? And, when you take a look at the life of any BDR, and, we used to say that you have to generate 5 net new meetings a week, right? And it's, one a day. And you would, that was your job. You didn't have like these activity metrics that said you're done for the day if you send 350 cold emails out. And so what you'll start to see is who does better. Which part of the BDR team sets more meetings? It's always the inbound team. Like, you would love to be calling the inbound leads that come to your website as opposed to the wild west of trying to set meetings up with people that haven't come to your site.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at that small universe of who's coming to your website and how many do you know, for the most part, these organizations are being provided account level and location level intelligence. Like, hey, somebody from Home Depot came to my website and they're in Atlanta. And then you're struggling. Well, that's where the headquarters is. There's 10,000 plus people there. There's 20 people that this could have been. I hope. So you go to LinkedIn, right? Whereas when you start to think about identity matrix and you think about, well, there are some other identity resolution companies in the space that can help you unhide 10 to 20, maybe 25% of their website visitors down to the first and last name. You start to say, well, this is great. Do people believe in that yet? Are they finding that when they have the first and last name that they're successful? And I think, when you bring that awareness to somebody, hey, you're already doing something that we believe in, we can just help you triple it and we can help you get X. When you start to create content, you want to tie it to things that they already care about. You're not asking them to change their mind on something. You're actually just saying the technology and the ability to link and unhide who these people are What's changed now is it's now available technologically to solve this.
So how do you, and I'm sure you would drill me with 1,000 questions. So be a little overly generic. If I want to drive people to the website, again, I think, right, AI generated blogs with a little bit of humanization. I think post on LinkedIn. So what format of content, let's start there. What format of content do you typically like for, let's say, awareness and an initial educational type of campaigns? Is it like a white paper? Is it infographics? It's super broad, but give me some examples.
Yeah. So there's really kind of two different, there's a fork in the road where I would look at it. I'd say on the left side, you can go programmatic display, and you can leverage as many data sets as you want to kind of know what message should resonate with the audience that you're trying to reach. And if you can drive people to your website and you can do it at scale, then I'm all for it, right? And what your organization would be able to do is unhide who those individuals are. So it's kind of this beautiful loop. But if somebody said to me, we have a division of our company that is building awareness around what we do in the market, what my job is to capture that demand, and it's to be able to accelerate it and nurture it and start to quantify it and turn it into meetings for sales. That's when the content that I would create and the messaging within that content would start to kind of be kind of like that early mid-stage content where it's, all right, if I'm in your position and I have to solve this problem, here's the 10 things I think about. And then I start to move to how have lookalike companies like this solve that. And I might use some comparison type content, some case study type content. And I keep it really digestible, right? Gone are the days of a 30, 50, 90 page PDF.
Yeah.
If you can have interactive content, webcasts, videos, podcasts, you can take the core message and you can kind of put it in whatever format your persona wants to buy it at. But then what I typically do is you work with the established media players that are in the space. And another way to look at that is, where does your audience actually go to get trusted information? If they're part of an email newsletter and there's, 50,000 other people like them that when they need information, they respond to these particular brand sponsored emails, then I would work with those organizations that already have that trusted relationship. Back to Fairway, if you think about, somebody buying a new driver, or you think about somebody buying a new putter, you would often want to go to some sort of golf media provider, as opposed to somebody who's just general sports. Because general sports, you might buy, golf clubs once in your life, whereas somebody who is going and living and breathing on like how-to tips and how to get better at golf, if they see an advertisement or a case study around, hey, here's the new ping putter and here's what it's done for you, that's somebody who's a lot more serious that you could engage.
So let me give you an example if I'm hearing this right. I get pinged nonstop by TLDR to go advertise with them, right? Too long didn't read, for those of you that don't know the acronym. Huge publication. And most of them are going to be startup founders and, that sort of a deal. You're not trying to recreate a massive email list necessarily like they already did. You're saying go to them and you'll help develop the content that converts those readers into leads. Am I hearing that right?
100%. And I'm saying that ability to know who those publications are is really tough for advertisers, especially when they have 10,000 new MarTech technologies that are out there. And I see that somebody such as Fairway that can build those relationships on the back end for each one of these different audience segments, they become a trusted partner of yours to say, all right, here's the security partners that we're going to work with. Here's the AI partners that we're going to work with. Here's the business intelligence media providers out there. And that ability to orchestrate that for thousands of different B2B tech and SaaS companies, I think is pretty powerful.
Now, quantifying that would be really hard, depending on the case, right? I come from a RevOps background. I can nerd out on multi-touch attribution, MTA, and whatnot all day. In the example I gave, you would potentially be first touch attribution, pretty easy to track. In the case where you're creating like middle of funnel content, they've seen me before, etc., how do you quantify that you may have been step number 4 out of 84 in the cycle and be able to look a business owner in the eye and say, I helped you generate this many leads or this amount of revenue, whatever the case is?
Yeah, so the market in general, the marketing space has a lot of different opinions on attribution right now, and everybody is going to kind of have their 2 cents on how do you design a program and execute it so that it can be measurable. I have some really strong opinions on it, and it's something that I love about the space that keeps me in the space. I personally believe that the opportunities within your CRM should be created via marketing. And so if marketing can leverage its data sets or even work with sales operations and marketing operations to really pinpoint who is in market, that even if you're not getting the at-bat, your competitors are getting the at-bat, then you start to create an opportunity. And we know that to win those opportunities and to set meetings up, you need to influence, often 4 to 10 different people that are in the buyer's journey, right? And so you start to advance the score of it being 5% to 15% to 40% as you start to unhide who these people are. And sometimes you unhide them because they came to your website. Sometimes you unhide them because they opted into a form fill that gated your case study. Other times you see them at an event. There's so many different channels in which you can do it, that I often think you're trying to help this buying group solve a problem that is budgeted for by the executive team of their company. So as you start to think, what do they need to check off in order to make that purchase decision, and how long should it take? You can start to measure and attribute not necessarily who had the first touch or the last touch, but if we took half of our ABM list that we engaged throughout the process and the other half, which we spent no marketing budget on, did we see faster, bigger, and more predictable sales cycles when marketing was involved versus when we didn't see them come to our website or they didn't opt into a case study? If sales could just do it without you, with nothing that you've invested in, then that would be a sign that you got a lot of work to do.
So what I'm hearing is it's an indirect correlation where you're saying, okay, you have the control data set of just sales cranking crap out, right? Now you have the split test of marketing's in there. You can't necessarily say this step did X or this step contributed 13.1% of new revenue. But what you are saying is it's a no-brainer if overall your conversion rates go up by 12%. I'm making it up, right? Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you? It needs to be looked at in aggregate as opposed to a per step basis?
Yeah. I mean, just imagine that, when you built your ABM list, and you leveraged all the different data sets that you have, and you started it at that organizational or that buying group level. Let's just say that 30% of those accounts ended up converting into new customers. That would be, from a growth standpoint, that is measurable. We know the accounts, we know the activities, we have it logged in our CRM, in our sales system. You can compare that to all of the new business that came from accounts that were unidentified. And you should have a significantly higher volume of opportunities that came from what you invested in nurturing than those that you haven't. And so I think that it's just, designing it from the beginning, kind of knowing who the control experiment is versus who you really invested the data into.
Outside of partnering, and you sort of answered this, but I'm wondering if you have any other ideas outside of partnering with like a email newsletter list, whether it's a golf.com or TLDR, whatever, and then you have programmatic. Are there any other main distribution channels that you really like?
Yeah, I'm still a big believer in the phone, right? And so when I think about how do you meet these prospects in these buying units, I think that right now I've always loved, the sales enablement platforms like Outreach, for example. But what I don't love to see are young, new BDRs in the space hide behind email and be afraid to use the phone. And so if you can learn how to build those sequences where they're referencing one another, where maybe, hey, I saw that you're the decision maker for ABC, right? I'm going to send you an email with a case study after this. Those combinations to me are really powerful. Now, digging into the data, what I was surprised about, how much more effective it is to get in touch with somebody by calling a direct dial instead
Yep.
of their work line.
Especially when everyone's working remotely or at 50% of the workforce, right? Fully agree.
Yeah, and I don't think I realized how expensive it is to pay 5, 10, 15, 20 sales reps and then to not give them any direct dials, right? Because calling the switchboard and spelling somebody's name, or just having inaccurate data, people that are switching companies and stuff like that, the amount of time that it takes to do that as a sales rep, and then the confidence that you lose when you're not hitting your 5 meetings a week, but you feel like you're cranking dials. We've had some clients basically come and quantify that, saying that at best, every time you pick the phone up, it's $1. And at worst, it's $30 to $40 per dial.
Yep. No, makes perfect sense. Now, everyone, and I go off on this tangent just about every podcast now. Clay is great. I'm a big proponent of Clay, but if you're just using it to find companies, write an AI email, AI is inherently generic, right? It's an aggregation of all the resources on the internet. In sales, you want to stick out. So I think what most people are doing is they'll go buy, 300 different email accounts across 100 different domains. They'll use something like Clay, create some cold emails, and go right in for the kill. Right? Opt in, buy my crap, whatever. Have you seen it work where if you are sending emails, cut out your CTA or soften it up dramatically and just provide content, whether it's a relevant blog or case study, whatever? Have you seen that improve outbound conversions?
Yeah. So essentially what I've seen is that if you can get your sales team access to things like the intent data, or things like what was the content asset that was downloaded, what were the answers to the custom questions, that instead of it transforming their statements that they make in their email title or on their opening line on the phone call, what it starts to do is it starts to create real curiosity on what questions should they ask. And I believe deeply that in sales, you catch somebody's attention when you ask a question that your competition couldn't ask, right? And so as you start to help the buying team at these organizations think about things and ask questions that they don't necessarily know the answer to, you're no longer selling with them, but you're starting to create value generating, provoking questions. And I've always been a big believer that the conversion comes from showing somebody that you know more about the problem that they're trying to solve than the solution. Whatever vendor knows how hard something is and how much pain and how much it would be worth to solve it better than their competition, those are the ones that your clients typically trust to take the time to at least vet you out.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Going back to your former days at Tech Target, or even what was the name that Forrester bought?
Yeah, Serious Decisions.
Okay, so I'm curious, even if you left before Forrester bought them, I think you and I both agree that 90-page white papers no longer work, except Forrester can pull it off. Why?
Well, the practitioners and the analysts that they hire, when you see them behind the scenes, you have to have so much respect for them. They often have 15, 20, 25 plus years of experience. In order to produce content and get it ready to go to market, they typically have peer-to-peer evaluations of one another. So they, when they take data and they take benchmark information and they create their content, it has to also get vetted out by other incredibly experienced and brilliant peers. So So by the time that they do go to a summit or they do produce content, there's so many brilliant eyes on it that you start to find out, okay, so what does this marketing and sales and product landscape care about? And as a vendor or as somebody who has the ability to help tie together a lot of MarTech solutions, you have to be tapped into what Forrester and companies like that are doing, because they're helping you understand what problems people are budgeting to solve.
Makes sense. So really a lot of it comes from the credibility that what you read is going to be factual, legitimate, etc. Now, let me give you an example, more practical. If I wanted to go write, everyone talks about intent signals, right? And yeah, technically we're a little bit of intent, although we're a lot more than that. Somebody's engaged with your brand, whatever. If I wanted to go write a research report on, the state of intent signals in 2025, I'm making it up. That would inherently be a long article or a long white paper, right? That'd be maybe not 90 pages, but even 12 or 24 pages, right? Is that viable? What's a better way of distributing that content or that knowledge? Is it a video series? I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, simplifying things is not probably my biggest strength, even from an answer standpoint. I think it takes a real talent to be a content or a product marketer who has the ability to synthesize exactly how to capture the attention of these buyers and how to make sure you get to the essence. Understanding a subject in its entirety is different than hearing enough to decide to really dig deep into it. And so I think that I'm still a big fan of bite-sized content. I believe that each level within a company, whether it's manager, director, senior level, or C-level, I think that they have different content length expectations in different formats. They consume it sometimes when they're on a train, sometimes when they're in an airplane. So
who the hell's on a train, Ben?
Oh, in Boston, we still take the train.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So, anyways, because of that, because of those different information needs that people have, I think that I still think you got to get right. You got to get right to the point.
Fair enough. Awesome. Giving me a lot to think about with our own strategy. And I think, what our audience is startups all the way up to enterprise. I think the reason I'm throwing all these different questions at you is to give different perspective of all types. This is really intriguing. Ben, if somebody wants to learn more from you, what is the best way that they can get a hold of you? And I know you're going to say LinkedIn, but I have to ask.
Right now, my cell phone. If you text me on the cell phone, I will respond and I will definitely take a meeting. And it's funny, that's definitely a cheesy little plug, because one of my favorite partners has the ability to enrich about 7 out of 10 of your North American contacts with the mobile number right now, which is at least 2 to 3 times more than all the other contact data sets that we've seen. So yeah, I find that you do have to be respectful of how you use that, of how you use it and when you use it. But right now, I mean, we're holding this thing for 15 plus hours a day in our hand. It's how I respond.
Fair enough. Well, I'll tell you what, Ben, give me your number. And then I think I have it already. And if you want to reach out to Ben, I'm going to screen you. That way Ben doesn't have to give it out on a podcast. But I will have people reach out to you, man. Ben, super insightful, giving me a lot to think about. I think probably others as well that, again, like me, boil content down to let's go write blogs and get some SEO traffic and call it a day. So really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us.
You got it. Thanks, Stephen. Look forward to connecting with you later.